As God set up a beautiful likeness of himself in the heavens, the Son, so he established among men a tangible and living image of himself, the King. I am Henry VIII, and this is my interview for the Unrecorded interview.
Your Majesty, tonight you stand before us in the golden and dazzling splendor of your youth. An elite athlete of 23 years, yet your mind harbors the dark and heavy memories of an entire lifetime. The crown, the ulcerated legs, the scaffold, and the tragic decline of your final hours. But we will speak of that later. Your Majesty, history tirelessly debates your great matter. You violently severed the nation of England away from the authority of Roman Catholicism. But was this monumental break truly born out of sincere and profound theological conviction? Or was it simply driven by your unrestrained personal greed and your desperate desire for Anne Boleyn?
You dare echo the slanders of my enemies. My conscience was grievously offended by the word of God. I looked to Leviticus and saw clearly. If a man shall take his brother's wife, it is an impurity. They shall be childless. The lack of a living son was divine proof of that transgression. I did not act from mere carnal appetite. I acted because I was living in abominable sin, and to continue would have invited divine ruin upon my realm.
Yet to resolve this conscience, you dismantled centuries of religious tradition and seized supreme spiritual authority. Was the sacrificial price of splitting Christendom justified just to secure your own desires?
It was no mere desire. It was the defense of the English soul and crown sovereignty. By divers sundry old authentic histories and chronicles, it is manifestly declared that this realm of England is an empire, governed by one supreme head. The Bishop of Rome had usurped that which was rightfully mine. I restored the pristine dignity of the Church so that the Word of God could run freely and purely among my subjects, free from foreign thraldom.
Let us speak of the women who bore the weight of this supremacy. You cast aside Catherine of Aragon after 20 years, replacing her with Anne Boleyn. But Anne's reign was fleeting. In less than 3 weeks, she went from a crowned queen to being permanently removed from court. Why the sudden downfall?
Catherine stubbornly refused to accept the truth of our unlawful union, preferring to see our realm plunged into a disputed succession. As for the Boleyn woman, she bewitched me, but she proved a deception. She promised me heirs, but she miscarried of her fruit, which proved God would not bless that union either. She betrayed my honor with base conversations and infamous incitations, and so she faced the law and suffered the ultimate judgment.
The persistent shadow of reproductive failure deeply haunted your entire reign. You had several wives who suffered through the agony of late-term miscarriages and young infants who tragically perished shortly after birth. Did you sincerely believe in your heart that your various marriages were being actively cursed by the hand of the Almighty God himself?
The torment of empty cradles was an agony no monarch should bear. My infant sons perished in their swaddling clothes. I was the tangible image of God on earth, yet my seed withered. It was firmly established that a king who produced no children to inherit his throne must have offended God. I was convinced that my marital woes were divine punishment, a curse upon my bed for transgressing his laws.
I must introduce a perspective from outside our historical chronicles. Modern medical theories suggest a pathology, specifically that you carried the Kell blood group Antigen, which causes a mother's antibodies to attack the fetus in subsequent pregnancies. Under this theory, God did not curse your wife. Your own biology was the true scaffold for your children. I must clarify that this information does not come from your historical sources, and you may want to verify it independently. How do you answer this?
You speak of modern science and invisible humors, concepts wholly alien to my physicians, who understood only the balance of the body and the will of the Almighty. But whether it was a hidden defect of the flesh or the wrath of heaven, the outcome was the same. The dynastic toll was exacted upon my line, and I, as sovereign, had to bear the terrible burden of finding a vessel that could carry the Tudor legacy to term.
Let's examine another medical theory from outside the text regarding your shifting temperament. In January 1536, you suffered a catastrophic fall in the lists, lying unconscious for 2 hours. Some modern pathologists argue that this caused you chronic traumatic encephalopathy, transforming you from a generous humanist prince into a paranoid, unpredictable sovereign. Did that accident break your mind?
I fell heavily in my armor, yes, and the shock was severe. But my mind remained as formidable as ever. It is a convenient slander to blame a fall from a horse for the hard decisions I had to make. I was not broken, I was awakened. The betrayals I suffered, from wives, from prelates, from rebellious subjects, required a firmer hand. I learned that if a lion knew his own strength, hard were it for any man to rule him.
That firmer hand eliminated your closest intellectual companion. Sir Thomas More was a renowned humanist. However, when he chose silence over your supremacy, he lost his standing and his head. How could you sacrifice a friend to the heavy toll of the axe?
Thomas More was a man of extraordinary learning, but his stubbornness threatened the realm. I required my subjects to make open protestation of their loyalty and agreement. His silence was a beacon to my enemies, an invitation to Catholic Europe to menace my kingdom. I answered to God for the safety of England, and those who placed the Bishop of Rome above their king had to be cleared from the stage.
And Thomas Cromwell, the brilliant architect of your state bureaucracy, the man who built your supremacy. However, when his usefulness waned, he too was disposed of, silenced without even a trial.
Cromwell was my minister, a creature of my making, but he forgot his place. He pushed me into that repulsive marriage with Anne of Cleves, a woman I found so loathsome I could not consummate the union. Furthermore, he fostered sacramentarian heretics and spread radical beliefs behind my back. When a servant presumes to instruct his master or leads the realm into dangerous extremism, he must be eliminated.
Cromwell also oversaw the dissolution of the monasteries, obliterating centuries of English piety. You claimed you were purging corruption, but was this not simply state-sponsored plunder to fund your wars and feed your extravagance?
The monasteries were dens of vicious, carnal living and superstitious idolatry. I purged them to restore the faith to its pristine dignity. Yes, I claimed their wealth, but I used it to fortify the coasts of my realm against foreign invasion and to build the greatest navy the world had seen. It was not plunder. It was the reclamation of England's resources for the protection of her people.
This brings us to the core of your paradox. Your father, Henry VII, rebuilt England's economy, left you immense wealth and secured peace. Yet history largely ignores him. You brought structural chaos, marital scandals, and ecclesiastical upheavals and achieved global immortality. Did you actively prefer infamy over quiet success?
My father was a shrewd man, but he lived in the menacing shadow of civil war, acting as a cautious clerk. I knew that a king must be a stupor mundi, a sun king. Peace and ledgers do not capture the hearts of men. A monarch must project magnificent spectacle and undeniable power to ensure his dynasty is revered and feared. I did not seek infamy. I sought to make the Tudor name eternal.
So your brand of kingship required drama. You believe that a quiet king is a weak king, and that to rule effectively, you had to be a colossal, unforgettable figurehead?
Precisely. Tudor kingship was theatrical. It was a display that attempted to persuade and convince the world of its inherent majesty. To show weakness or hesitation was to invite usurpation. By asserting my supreme headship and demonstrating that I answered to no earthly tribunal, I raised the monarchy to a height never before seen. The cost of sovereignty is high, but it guarantees that the throne remains unshaken.
You meticulously crafted this image. You used Hans Holbein's portraits to artificially enhance your physical majesty. The broad shoulders, the commanding stance, deliberately hiding your decaying, obese body and failing health from your subjects.
The physical body of the king and the political body of the realm are one. If the people see a frail, diseased mortal, they see a frail, diseased kingdom. Holbein captured the truth of my spirit and my authority. It was essential to project an iron mask of absolute strength, to strike awe into the hearts of my subjects and my enemies abroad, even as my mortal vessel suffered.
How you suffered. In your final years, you were plagued by agony. Your legs swollen with weeping ulcers, requiring you to be carried about in a chair or hauled by machinery. How difficult was it to rule a fractured nation while trapped in such physical torment?
The pain was a relentless fire in my flesh. It drove me to dark humors and melancholy. But even when I could not walk, my will remained absolute. I commanded the realm from my chair. I refused to let the agony of the flesh conquer the divine mandate of the crown. I remained the master of my council and the supreme head of the church until my final hour.
Yet, despite your obsessive and relentless struggle for a male heir, Edward VI perished young. Mary I divided the state with religious conflicts, and Elizabeth I, the daughter you considered a disappointment, became the ultimate Tudor legend. How do you view the fate of your children?
English experience of a queen regnant was remote and unhappy. I believed a son was a political necessity to avert civil war. I could not have foreseen that the boy I so desperately sought would perish before his prime, or that the daughter of Anne Boleyn would inherit my formidable spirit. God's providence works in mysteries beyond the grasp of kings. Elizabeth took my imperial crown and forged it into a golden age.
As you gaze back now from your eternal throne at the countless broken lives and ruined destinies, the severed friendships, the wives who met their tragic and final sentence, and the shattered altars, do you truly regret the staggering and exorbitant sacrificial price of your long reign?
Regret is a luxury for lesser men. I was the King of England. The sacrificial price was exacted to secure a realm, to forge a unified nation free from foreign prelates. I made the hard, terrible choices that sovereignty demands. Let the world judge me as it will. I answered only to God, and I left behind an England that will never forget my name.
King Henry VIII, a sovereign who bent religion, law, and flesh to his absolute will. He sought to conquer time and biology, leaving a legacy written in monumental majesty and profound human ruin.
Power is a consuming fire. Those who grasp the scepter must be prepared to burn. I rewrote the laws of God and man to build an empire, and in return, history bound me to the scaffold of my own legend. Remember this: the crown demands everything, and time pardons nothing.
The Unrecorded Interview. History documentary series.